Hello everyone, this is Clint Coons here with Anderson Business Advisors and Law Group, and I'm going to spend some time talking to you about self-directed IRAs and all of the BS. And what I mean by that is the bad structuring advice people get when it comes to using this particular tool, especially with real estate. I mean, there's just so many different groups out there telling individuals what they should be doing with their IRAs. And unfortunately, these individuals who follow this advice are really setting themselves up for potential disaster. And I've seen it coming for a number of years, just from my own readings on what's going on with the Internal Revenue Service, what's been going on with court cases, and also what people have been told with what they can do with their IRAs. Because it's a money game for a lot of individuals out there who are setting these things up. And what I want to do is spend some time and show you where all the problems reside, and then give you a solution that will solve these issues, number one. And number two, put you in a position where you can start doing some truly amazing things with your retirement funds. Open up possibilities that you probably never heard of before and didn't know exist with your retirement funds, because the people who talk about self-directed IRAs, they don't want you to have this information. Because if you had this information, you would turn around and walk out their door, or you would hang up on them and find this solution and put your funds in a different type of account and avoid using the self-directed IRA. So with that, why don't you say we get started here and we'll start talking about this. So when it comes to tax deferred investing, you really have two choices if you want to have control over your retirement funds. The first choice is to use the self-directed IRA, which is what this webinar is about. Do you want to set this up? Do you want to have control of your IRA funds or your rollover 401k funds? And yes, you can roll it into a self-directed account that will give you this type of control. We all know about that. But what you do not know about, because not many people talk about it and expose you to this, is that you can also create your own qualified retirement plan. Yeah, similar to a 401k or profit sharing that you have at your current place of business, you can have one of those plans. You do not need to be a Fortune 500 company to set up your own qualified retirement plan. And you can set up your plan with a lot more options that you're given than what you receive right now with your current employer. Yeah, these plans, the way current employers put them together, they're going to restrict what you can do with them. But when you create your own plan, you can put in there much, much more. And we're going to be talking about that. But I first want to go into some history of these self-directed IRAs, because people say, well, how is it that everybody talks about the self-directed IRA? Where did they evolve from? Well, I can think back to about year 2000. And I was out there teaching workshops, and I would attend these large conventions, and you saw there'd be one person there with a booth talking about the benefits of a self-directed IRA. And then slowly over time, as I attended more seminars and more workshops, I began to see that there were other individuals showing up on the scene with their own little booth talking about self-directed IRAs. And I would say by 2007, if you went to a convention and there were 50 or 60 booths there, at least a third of those booths, well, maybe not quite that many, but you get my point here. A lot of people would be there pitching self-directed IRAs. And the pitch was really relatively quite easy. What they were telling individuals that you've been in the stock market, you've been hammered by stocks, you've been told that the only thing you can invest in is mutual funds, stocks, whatever the company, the custodian, offers you, and you cannot go outside of those investments. And most of us sit back and tell ourselves, we don't want to be limited. We want to have options. We want choices. So the self-directed IRA is just an IRA, but it's created by a company that gives you the option to direct your investments. That is, they're not going to limit what you do with those funds. Now, of course, that's going to come with a cost, because when you use self-directed IRA companies, many times they charge you to set up an IRA with them, whereas if you went with the Charles Schwab, there's no cost there. The reason being is that the broker custodian, he makes his money off of your investments. That is, when you invest in the mutual funds, they're getting paid. When you're dealing with a self-directed IRA, and there's two different types here, people that set these up, they're what we call third-party administrators, which is predominantly what most of the individuals are in the industry. That is, they don't actually, they're not a custodian of your funds. Your funds are actually placed with a trust company or someone else, and oftentimes you don't even know this is taking place. The third-party administrator is nothing but a middleman that handles the funds and handles the disbursements and the investments for you. So most of us who've set up self-directed IRAs, you're actually dealing with this TPA, this third-party administrator, and they'll charge you a fee in order to allow you to direct your funds into any type of investment you would like. Now, of course, that presents a planning opportunity for people, and a lot of people have jumped onto this bandwagon thinking that, hey, I want to gain control, I want to get more money out of my retirement plans. And you know what, I understand that because I've been in the stock market and I've seen how devastating it can be when you're locked into mutual funds and you're locked into stocks, and you're seeing real estate take off out there and thinking, gosh, I'd really like to be participating in that. Well, the self-directed IRA has, for many individuals, seemed like the only option they have, because these companies have been telling people that if you want to get outside of the stock market and you want to invest in certain things like, say, real estate, or if you want to put money into tax liens and deeds or private notes, you can even do first trust deeds. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with a self-directed IRA, provided that you're dealing with a third-party administrator who handles those funds. So as you know, or maybe you don't know, when you set up a self-directed IRA, what you're going to do is roll your funds over to the third-party administrator, who will then deal with the custodian to custodial these funds for you. And then what you have to do is go out there and, of course, find some alternative investments. Find the real estate that you want to purchase. Find that tax lien or deed that you want to buy. And then you can go out there and buy it. Or maybe not. So the whole deal here is that these individuals, these third-party administrators, the people who promote self-directed IRAs, it's a bit of a misnomer. The word self-directed implies that you're going to be able to direct your funds, that is, you can control them. But unfortunately, the Internal Revenue Service will not allow that. When you set up a self-directed IRA, you cannot touch the money. You cannot control its movement. All of that has to be handled by a third party, your third-party administrator, or if you're directly with a custodian, the custodian himself will handle those investments. So you can't really touch the funds. You think you're self-directed, but it's not. For example, let's say you found a house. You're driving around on the countryside on a Saturday, and you see this house. It's a great deal. They just got listed for sale by owner, and you understand that based in that particular locale, that house is $100,000 on the market. So you walk up to the owner and you tell him, I want to buy your property. And he says, fine, I'll sell it to you. I want some earnest money. Well, here's the scenario, sir. I cannot provide that to you. I'm going to contact my third-party administrator, my IRA custodian, on Monday, and he will contact you. You can expect a call from, let's say, Equity Trust Company. They're going to call you, and they will send you the earnest money and negotiate the deal with you, sign any type of purchase and sale agreement you would like on behalf of my IRA, because I'm not buying it in my own name. I'm buying it in my self-directed individual retirement account. Now, what do you think the seller's going to do? Is he going to look at you and say, absolutely, sir, I will hold that property for you till Monday? Or he's going to say, all right, well, if it's still available on Monday, it's yours. But if somebody else comes along right after you and offers me the same price, I'm going to sell it to them. Most likely he's going to sell it to the first person that's ready, willing, and able to buy and can sign a purchase and sale agreement and give them some earnest money. So this is where real estate investors realized, hey, this isn't a truly self-directed IRA deal here. I have to always work through a third party in order to put my deals together because the IRS prohibits me from doing this. If I do this on my own, it's considered to be a prohibited transaction. So by utilizing you, I'm at your work schedule. So if you're, let's say I'm on the Pacific Coast and my custodian's on the East Coast, then I have to work during his working hours. So if I'm investing after work, let's say 5 o'clock at night, well, that's 8 o'clock at the East Coast, so I can't do any deals with him then because he's not open during those times. So this was a constant problem for people with self-directed IRAs. When they started to try to put these deals together, they realized they don't go so fast. I mean, here's how it would typically work with a self-directed IRA. You go out and you find the investments, then you have to contact your third-party administrator and explain to them that there's a particular investment you would like to invest in. After that, your third-party administrator will deal with the seller directly, sign any agreements with them per your instructions, move money to them per your instructions. Then when the deal is cemented, then they're going to contact the custodian, of course, who holds the funds, who is going to then move the money to the seller of the property, and then the property will be taken in the name of your IRA. See, look how simple it was. It was so easy to put this entire deal together. This is what we call self-directed. That is, you have to deal with other parties in order to use your money. Kind of sounds a lot like it was with the traditional IRA. It's just that I can invest outside of the stock market, but it's not as if I can go up to a privately held company and write them a check to buy their stocks. So this has kind of collapsed on itself because they realized this does not necessarily meet the demands of the general public, the people who want to get out there and self-direct. So this actually put the IRA, self-directed IRA community into a scramble because people started to catch on to this. They realized, hey, I'm spending $2,000 to set up the self-directed IRA and I can't even direct my own investments. Out of this, I have to use this third party all the time. You know, if I want to buy tax liens and deeds, I can't go down to auction and buy them because I can't hold the money myself. So that really took it out of the game for me. So when you told me I could buy foreclosures, it didn't work because I can't have a check with me when I go down there because it has to run through my IRA custodian. So the self-directed IRA industry had to evolve, and they did. In order to meet the needs of their clientele, they had to come up with a different solution here. A solution that would give the individual IRA account holder some control over their funds so they can actually put these deals together on their own without having to deal with a third-party administrator. So what they did is they came up with this nice little marketing term called checkbook control IRA, which is really a checkbook LLC, meaning this. These IRA custodians or third-party administrators then figured out that if they set up a limited liability company that is owned 100% by the IRA, they could then make the IRA account holder the manager of the LLC. So now they're going to set up an LLC. You're going to have to pay, of course, to set this up. And let me tell you something. A lot of these that have been set up in the industry have been set up the wrong way. They've all committed prohibitive transactions because many times the IRA or third-party administrators, they want to collect as much money as they can from the account holder at the outset. So they will charge their credit card the fee to set up the LLC. That is an impermissible contribution of assets to your IRA. You can't pay for those types of services for your IRA. Your IRA has to pay for it. And these third-party administrators, they're filled with salesmen that work in there. They don't care. They just want a credit card because they want a commission. So they don't care what type of harm they're putting you in when it comes to the IRS by setting up these LLCs and not setting them up the appropriate way. But nevertheless, people bought into this. And so now what you've seen in the industry is this shift. You still have to set up a self-directed IRA, but by the way, if you really want control, you also have to pay us to set up a limited liability company for you, because when that LLC gets set up, you're going to be the manager of it. So that means you're going to open up a bank account for your LLC. We will then, that is the third-party administrator, direct the custodian to deposit the funds or wire the funds into your LLC's account. Now, as the manager of your LLC, you'll be the only signer on that account, and because you're the manager as well, you can negotiate all of the transactions. So this is how it works. You have an individual with an IRA right here. This is a self-directed IRA. What they will do is they'll set up a limited liability company right here, and the IRA account holder is going to be the manager of this LLC. So the funds then are moved from the IRA into the LLC, and now the manager can go out there and negotiate to purchase properties and assets. So the assets then begin to accumulate in the LLC and not down here in the IRA. So it's the LLC that holds all of the assets. The IRA, the only thing that it holds is a 100% membership interest in that LLC that was set up for it. As I stated, a lot of these have been botched the way they've been set up. You'll find that the manager up here, the LLC uses his home address as its business address. The manager is a registered agent for the LLC. As I stated earlier, the manager, again, this is the account holder of the IRA. They paid for the setup of the LLC. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, there was a recent court case not too long ago where the manager was actually paying himself a salary to run this self-directed IRA because his operating agreement stated he could pay himself a salary, and so that's what he started doing. And then when he was audited, they said, hey, your IRA is disqualified. You couldn't do that. You committed a prohibited transaction. So he lost his IRA because he didn't understand what he was doing. Because many times these IRA custodians who set it up, they're not attorneys. You're dealing with individuals who formerly worked for another company, and now they've gone out on their own because they realized how easy it is to get into this business to make some money at it, and they don't have to be licensed. They don't have to do anything other than just put up a website, and they can start offering self-directed IRA services, provided that they have a back-end custodian to house the funds. Now, what I've been hitting at is that there's a number of problems with these, and what I call these are gremlins. You got to look out for the gremlins, because nobody's going to look out for your money like you. Nobody's going to tell you what the problems are if they themselves do not know where the problems lie. So here are some of the gremlins that what I've seen. Failure to pay tax on debt. Now, one of the benefits of using a retirement account, if you can do it, is leverage. That is, you borrow money to go out and invest in an asset. So if your self-directed IRA had $100,000 in it and you wanted to buy a $150,000 home, you may have to borrow, not from yourself, although people have done this. They've loaned their IRA money and it just hasn't been caught yet, but once it gets caught, that's a prohibited transaction. Ideally, what you want to do is you have to borrow it from a third party. So when you borrow the $50,000 from the third party, you go out and you buy this $150,000 home, everything's fine, right? Let's assume that you generate $20,000 a year in rental income. People look at that income coming in and they think to themselves, well, it's an IRA, so it's non-taxable. Well, that's where you're wrong. Because with the self-directed IRA, you have to pay tax on the borrowed portions of your income. In my example, 1/3 of the purchase price was used with borrowed funds. And remember, these have to be non-recourse loans, meaning you can't personally guarantee them. So in this particular case, the individual IRA itself should have been paying tax on 1/3 of the $20,000. And in many cases, they're not paying tax on that money. Now let me give you an example, or let me tell you how expensive that is. After about $12,000 in earnings inside of an IRA, you're at a 40% tax rate. Pretty high, huh? That's because with trusts, IRAs are trusts, irrevocable trusts, or complex trusts, what happens is they compress the tax rates down. So you have to pay an extremely high amount in tax on the income you're generating inside of that self-directed IRA. 9 out of 10 people that I talk to that have set up these tools are not aware of that, and they've not been paying that tax. That is just a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. There's a lot of problems in the self-directed IRA industry that you may not be aware of. I talked about equity trust here a few moments ago. Many people that are set up with equity trust, which is one of the biggest players in the industry, are not aware that in July of this year, the Securities and Exchange Commission put an injunction on equity trust from creating any new accounts. They blocked them. Now, you don't know this based upon their marketing that's continuing to go on, that they are actually shut down from taking in new money. The reason why the SEC has gone after them is because equity trust, not unlike any of the other IRS companies out there, what they do is they bring in other individuals to market investment opportunities to their account holders. And then when their account holders invest in these other opportunities, then equity trust gets a kickback from whatever it is they invested in. Well, turns out equity trust was bringing in some disreputable people who were stealing money from these account holders and then paying equity trust to have access to those account holders. And as a result of that, the SEC has recognized there's a huge problem with the self-directed IRA industry, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've Entrust, another big player in the industry. There's been class action lawsuits actually filed against Entrust and Equity Trust in California. Entrust I've seen come up in a number of court cases where the court is very skeptical of their business practices, because with self-directed IRA companies, what they will do is they will tell you you can make certain types of investments even though you shouldn't be doing these certain types of investments. They're prohibited transactions, and then they're going to send you out a letter of direction that you have to sign and fill out, instructing them where to place your money, who to send it to. And in that instruction letter, that letter of direction, they always have a hold harmless disclaimer at the very bottom that says they did not counsel you on the investment of your funds and that you've done all the due diligence on your own. My experience, when I've talked to people that have committed prohibited transactions, they always tell me, I was told by a representative of my self-directed IRA company that I could make this investment, and now you're telling me I couldn't have made that because it's a prohibited transaction. They'll say, yeah, do you have it in writing? Many times they don't. Sometimes people are stupid enough to actually put it in writing. One of my clients was dealing with a company called Nevada Corporate Headquarters, and their representative, again, another salesperson, told my client how to create a prohibited transaction. They put it in writing. They tried to use a straw man. They said, oh, you want money out of your IRA? You can't loan it to yourself, but if you loan it to your cousin, he can turn around and loan it back to you, and that will pass IRS scrutiny. It will not. That's a step transaction. I was shocked that somebody put that in writing. But again, if they did that, they would sign a letter of direction which would hold this company harmless, and where they would say, we never told you that. Now, as I say, the court case has been looking at, so that's a huge problem with self-directed IRAs. Guaranteed loans, as I talked about, you cannot guarantee the loan if your IRA borrows money. I had a client borrowed money to buy their IRA wanted to buy an apartment building, so the IRA went out to borrow money to acquire this apartment complex. This individual who became my client, she guaranteed the loan, and again, she told me her IRA custodian told her she could do it. Now, to make matters even worse, she's actually living in one of the units as well right now, which is another prohibited transaction, because when you set up a self-directed IRA, you cannot deal with the individual assets. You cannot personally benefit them. That means you can't live there. You can't add any benefit to the assets through your own services. Let's say it's a house, you're a real estate investor, and you buy a rental. You can't go out there and fix the wiring. You can't go out there and paint the house. You have to hire all that out, contract that out, because if you're providing services to your IRA, that's an impermissible contribution of an asset because you're increasing the value. The only thing you can contribute to an IRA is cash. That's it. So these are a lot of problems you see out there. So as I said, you can't use it for personal benefit. You can't provide the services to the IRA. And where you're starting to see these IRAs becoming disqualified more than anything right now is in the bankruptcy context. There's been a number of bankruptcy cases this year where an individual filed for bankruptcy and they sought to exempt their IRA from the bankruptcy trustee as a protected asset. Bankruptcy trustee looked at it and said, wait a minute, and these are all real estate investors, by the way, you did X, Y, and Z. Since you engaged in X, Y, and Z, you committed prohibited transactions, so your IRA ceased to be an IRA on the day that you entered into that transaction. Therefore, you lost your protected status. And they're blowing these things apart. And unfortunately for the individual, they try to fall back on, well, this company told me I could do it. And the courts recognize the fact that that probably happened, but they signed that letter of direction which held the company harmless and disclaimed any advice that they were given. You have to watch out for it. So here's what you have right now. You have people that engage in prohibited transactions, and they've been hit in the legal front by bankruptcy trustees. It would be no different if somebody was suing you. A creditor could pierce your IRA now as well if you engage in a prohibited transaction because it's no longer protected. Add on top of that, the IRS is now looking at self-directed IRAs. In 2011, the Treasury General came out and stated that the IRS was going to focus on real estate investors. Now, through their audits of real estate investors, which have been numerous, by the way, they picked up on the fact that many of these same real estate investors who bought property in their own name were buying it in their IRA. So in 2013, they came out with another direction that they needed to start focusing on self-directed IRAs. Now, a lot of people in the industry, they didn't think this was going to happen. I saw it coming. And in 2014, a new form was released, 5498 was updated. This is the form that your third-party administrator custodian sends to the IRS on an annual basis, informing them of your plan balance or your account balance, how much you have inside of there. Well, prior to 2014, this revised form, it did not contain these two boxes down at the very bottom, 15A and 15B. 15A and 15B were specifically added in 2014 to track specific types of investments held inside of an IRA. Look at what they're supposed to track. They're looking at whether or not your IRA holds stock or an interest in a corporation that is not readily tradable on an established securities market, meaning a privately held company like you might set up in Nevada or Wyoming. They want to know if you own an interest in an LLC. Oh, there you go, checkbook LLC. This is what they're focused on. They want to know if you own real estate. Oh, imagine that. Self-directed IRA companies telling people they can buy real estate in their IRA. And they're telling you can do a lot more that you really can't do. They're focused on whether or not your IRA has more than two types of these assets as well. So if you own one house, they're going to let the IRS know that you own one house. But in 15 B, they also want to know that if your IRA is holding more than two properties, then they have to put this special code in there, so that further raises you up on the threat level of the Internal Revenue Service, because that means you have a lot going on inside of that self-directed IRA. It's not if, it's just a matter of time or when you're going to be audited if you have a self-directed IRA, because the IRS understands that people do not realize where the line is drawn with regards to prohibited transactions. So they're engaging in activity with their self-directed IRA without sufficient guidance, and they're committing these transactions that are taxable. So we know that because they borrow money and they don't pay tax on it. They're engaging in an active trader business inside of their self-directed IRA by the way they're running their investments. That's a problem. And they're just committing prohibited transactions, which then disqualifies their IRA. And if your IRA is disqualified, then you have to pay tax on all the growth inside of there. You have to pay a penalty for an early withdrawal, and you have to pay a penalty for engaging in prohibited transactions. You could lose up to 60% of your investment account if you screw it up when you're utilizing a self-directed IRA. So you have to ask yourself, are self-directed IRAs really so bad as I'm making them out to seem right now? Well, I don't want to leave you with the impression that you would never look at this, because I do look at these in limited circumstances. Would I recommend a real estate investor ever consider a self-directed IRA? And this is considering the fact that you have another option out there that will allow you to do so much more. You don't need this tool that limits your investing of your retirement funds. So here's where I would recommend you use it. If you have a Roth IRA and you want to put it into real estate, then that's your only option. You're going to have to use the self-directed IRA. If you're in a situation where you intend to buy a rental property inside of your IRA and you want to hold it long term, set up a self-directed IRA. Those are the two exceptions. That's it. If you're not fitting into one of those categories and you want to do more with your IRA or with your retirement funds, then you should not be utilizing a self-directed IRA. What you want to do is raise your investing to a whole new level. You want to evolve it to a point that nobody else out there has understood or is really taking advantage of right now, because they've fallen prey to the marketing prowess of the self-directed IRA industry. And the way you do that is you set up a different type of plan. You set up a plan that does not have handcuffs on it. You want a plan that gives you complete control. That is where you're going to be the trustee. So when you set up the plan and you put your money inside of it, you get a checkbook. You're automatically in control of that plan, so you can start putting deals together on day one. You don't have to go through some convoluted, gimmicky procedure in order to gain access to your funds, something that's now in question by the Internal Revenue Service. Because with a qualified retirement plan, you are taking control of your funds and you're moving those accounts away from the traditional method of self-directed IRA that is scrutinized by the IRS, and you're putting them in a plan that is governed under the Department of Labor. And their concern is not so much how the funds are invested. Their concern is that all the employees are receiving their required contributions. That's what they audit plans for, the DOL. And so if it's just a husband and wife, this is a perfect plan for you, or a single individual, because you will have complete control over the funds. Now let me just show you how that works. You have your business. Most people have an LLC or a C corporation. We'll just call this an LLC right here. And then your company, your business, will sponsor this qualified retirement plan. QRP is what we refer to it as. So it's going to sponsor the QRP. Now, the money that comes into here can come from other IRAs that you own. You can roll the funds in. Let's say you have a 401k over here with another employer that you separated service from. You can roll the funds in. You can move money from your LLC when you're paying yourself a salary. That can go into this plan. And now you're right here, and you're what we call the plan trustee, or if you're married, you and your spouse will be the plan trustee. So you can invest directly out of this plan. You see a piece of property you want to buy? Buy it in the name of your plan. You want to go down and buy some tax liens and deeds? Get yourself a cashier's check, and you can go to auction and you can buy those tax liens and deeds right there at auction, because you're in control of your plan. You have a checkbook. When we set up these plans, what we're doing is we're getting the plan set up, we're creating an account that automatically an account set up and doing the rollovers for our clients, so the money's coming in and they're off and running with their investments. They're not having to jump through these hoops with the self-directed IRAs and setting up the LLCs and waiting for the LLC to be registered with the Secretary of State, and then having to go to a bank and open up an account, and then having to explain to the bank how they're not the member on the LLC that's really their IRA, but they're the manager, so they're authorized to open up the account. A lot of times accounts don't get open with these things, and then many times they don't get an EIN for the LLC, so then they have to go back and make another application for an EIN letter because they can't open up the account. I mean, it becomes a headache, and people don't then realize that they really don't have the control, and all it's been is a money grab by these self-directed IRA companies to put them in a position where they don't have the control they've been looking for. I mean, just think of the funding opportunities. You may not realize it, but when you set up a qualified retirement plan, you can contribute up to $53,000 per person to your plan on an annual basis. $53,000. How much can you contribute to an IRA? $5,500. You can do this provided you set your plan up the right way. And on top of that, if you set it up the right way, you can also put in $18,000 of that into a Roth. Again, maximum IRA contribution $5,500. But if you set up one of these plans, you can put in $18,000 into a Roth account, again, that you control. It's all in one big account. How about another opportunity here? You and your spouse. I mean, you're probably, if you're listening to this right now and you and your spouse have self-directed IRAs, you've come up against this. You have your money in an IRA, she has her money in an IRA, and you want to put the money together to buy a house. Well, that's complicated. Many times these self-directed IRA companies will tell you, we'll create an LLC, each of its own one half by each of your IRAs, or depending on whatever money's going into it, a percentage thereof. But again, we're making it overly complicated. We have to have two separate IRAs. We have to set up another entity in order to put a deal together. When you have a qualified retirement plan, you can pool your accounts. That is, both spouses can roll their IRAs, their 401ks from a prior employer, into one account. Yeah, you're hearing me right here. You can have one account inside of that plan, and you can invest out of that. So you don't need to have separate accounts like you do with self-directed IRAs. So again, this money's coming from your existing IRA. You have the money there. All you have to do is just roll it over, create the new account, and then the money flows right in. Now, I'm giving you the overviews here. There are some technicalities that go into this that we take care of for our clients on the back end that make it really simple to them by filling out the request forms to get the monies rolled into their accounts. But once it hits, you're in control of all of those funds. Now, it gets even better, because once you have this money inside of the account, then you start to realize the power that you have with regards to these funds. You know, many times I would talk to real estate investors. I was just on the not too long ago speaking with one who told me they have $500,000 inside of their IRA currently, and they would like to be able to gain access to that to start doing some deals on the outside, because they need cash flow on the outside. They can't do everything on the inside of their IRA. They want to do some deals on the outside so they can generate current income to support themselves. Well, they talked to their IRA custodian. They told them, well, you can pull money out, but you have to repay it in 60 days. You can do it one time a year. They were also told that they could take an early withdrawal, but they'd have to pay tax on it. But they said, don't worry with that early withdrawal tax at 10%. You'll make that up within a year with your real estate investing. When they came to me, I told them, skip that. Why don't you set up a QRP, and we'll get you a loan for $50,000 the very next day. Once that money's in there, you can borrow out up to $50,000 out of your own plan. Hey, if you have a spouse and she's rolled money in, there's another $50,000. Now you've got $100,000 you can invest with outside of that plan. And then guess what? You're paying yourself back. So really, you're your own bank. You're banking on yourself through your qualified retirement plan. So it gives you a way to put money into deals outside of the retirement plan environment and generate current income. As I talked about earlier, greater tax deductions when you set up a qualified retirement plan, because you can put in $18,000 into a 401k portion, because these accounts, the way we create them, we put in multiple buckets. You're going to get a Roth bucket where you can put in $18,000, or you're going to get a traditional 401k bucket where you can put in $18,000, and you're going to get a profit sharing bucket where you can put in $35,000 into that plan, and those contributions are deductible. Think about this, $18,000 in your pocket that you're able to put back in your plan and take a tax deduction for it. What does that mean to you? Well, it depends on your tax bracket. If you're in a 30% tax bracket, that's $6,000. Multiply that over 10 years, that's $60,000 in tax savings you've earned by creating a qualified retirement plan. I mean, the numbers are astounding when you start to think about how expensive it is or how difficult it is to use self-directed IRAs to build up those accounts when you're only able to put in $5,500 a year. Assume you wanted to buy a house for $50,000 and you had a self-directed IRA that you were starting today. How many years would it take you to have $50,000 in your account to buy that? 10 years. If you set up a qualified retirement plan, you know how many years it's going to take you? 1 year. And you'd be able to go out and buy that first property. In fact, you could fund it on day one with $53,000 to buy that property. So there's ways to set these things up that we create inside of our plans are specially tailored specifically for real estate investors to give them these types of investment opportunities. Because as we talked about earlier, all plans are not created equal. If you're not a real estate investor, if you're not understanding the challenges real estate investors face, then you're not going to draft your plan accordingly. Because like a self-directed IRA, a qualified retirement plan is a trust, and you can choose to put in there special powers that relate specifically to real estate investors, or you can withhold them. You know, what's worse is that if you don't even understand what the real estate investors need, so you never put those provisions in there at the outset because it never crossed your mind. So that's a real big problem with a lot of qualified retirement plans that are set up, is that people just don't understand how to create them for real estate investors. The other issue, debt's not taxable. In the example I gave you where we bought the house for $150,000 and we had to borrow $50,000 and we had to pay tax then on $6,000 of the earnings, if you do it in a qualified retirement plan, borrow away. None of that money is going to be taxable to your plan. That's a difference between qualified retirement plans and self-directed IRAs. I mean, it's just amazing. People say, well, how do I get these benefits, Clint? If I have an IRA, how does it get the benefits of a qualified retirement plan? Quite simple. Create the QRP and then roll your IRA in. You've just converted the funds. And now you're able to do so much more with that same money because it's held in a different type of account. Asset protection. Qualified retirement plans are covered under ERISA. Who's the poster child for this? O.J. Simpson. Drove down a freeway, right? And then he was sued. He got off on the criminal but lost on the civil. But he was smart. He moved to Florida, protect his house on the unlimited homestead exemption, and then he had his NFL pension to support him. Right now, even though he's been a resident of Nevada for a while, OJ receives an NFL pension. I think it's around $20-some thousand a month, and no creditor can touch those funds because it's a qualified retirement plan. It's covered under ERISA. That's the type of plan you should be setting up for your investing. So if something happens to you and you're sued, they cannot take your retirement monies from you. How about this? Would you like to partner with your plan? You can do that when you set up a qualified retirement plan. I was just speaking to an individual about a month ago where he was looking to put a deal together, but he wanted to make some money off it himself. He didn't want all the funds rolling back into his qualified retirement plan, again, because he needed some income. I said, it's simple. What we're going to do is we're going to take some money from you. We're going to take money from your qualified retirement plan. You're going to go together and buy this house. And then when you flip it, then you're going to split the proceeds accordingly. So if you put in 40%, then you're going to get 40% of those proceeds. 60% are going to roll into your IRA, and you won't have to pay any tax on it. You can even get even more creative. We can create plans, qualified retirement plans. The way we've set these things up, you could invest with your qualified retirement plan. Let's say you're buying rental property, and we can have all of the losses allocated to the individual. I mean, here's what I'm talking about. You have to depreciate real estate. Okay, so you buy a rental house, you get to depreciate it. That offsets your income. Well, if I partnered with my retirement plan and we went out and bought a $100,000 house, and let's assume that the depreciation was $3,000 a year, $4,000 a year on that property, then $4,000 of depreciation, we're not going to allocate any of that to my retirement plan because it doesn't pay tax. It doesn't need that depreciation loss. We're going to allocate it over to me individually, and I'm going to use that to offset any income I'm bringing in from that retirement property. So if I was in for 50% and the property generated $10,000 in income, my share of that income would be $5,000. Well, you take the $4,000 off the top, then I only have to pay tax on $1,000, even though I receive $5,000. I mean, that's the beauty of real estate. That's why people invest in it. It's just for those losses to be able, depreciation, to be able to pick that up to offset their income. So you're able to use your fund in that manner so you can reduce your tax liability by the way you set it up. I mean, the possibilities here are just tremendous, and endless when you create it the right way and you work with someone who understands how these plans need to be specifically tweaked for real estate investing to provide these types of benefits. Now, I'm going to show you something magical now. This is Anderson's Special QRP. These are things that most people have never even heard of before when it comes to retirement plan investing. How about this? Would you like to buy life insurance inside of your qualified plan? Yeah, try to buy it inside of an IRA. You can't, prohibited transaction. But you can actually purchase it inside of a QRP. We've got some special strategies that we utilize inside of our qualified retirement plans where you get guaranteed returns on any money that goes in, no risk of loss. You can borrow it back out and then put it into real estate. So you're not only making money in the market when the market's going up without fear of loss if the market goes down, you're also making money in real estate at the same time. You've got that, say, $100,000 invested in two places without any risk of loss. If you set your plan up the right way with the proper provisions, you can take advantage of these certain provisions within the tax code to utilize life insurance to increase your overall returns. Now, this next one right here is something that really gets people excited. You can put in $53,000 into a Roth on an annual basis. Yep, ask your IRA custodian how you're going to do that. They don't know. They're going to tell you you cannot do it, that the maximum you can contribute is $5,500 a year. The reason they're going to tell you that is because they don't know how to do it. This is something that we know how to do. And if you set your plan up with the proper provisions, you can make a $53,000 contribution to a Roth on an annual basis. Just think of the investment possibilities you'll have with that type of money rolling into a Roth, especially an account that when you decide to start taking the money out, you'll never have to pay taxes on that money ever again. None of the profits will ever be taxable. So let's look at the differences. Just to recap real quick, you can, with a QRP, you can take loans, you can partner with it, you can provide services to it, you can receive 1099s. That if you're a hard money lender with a QRP, you can get 1099s and give somebody an EIN. You can't do that with a self-directed IRA, of course. You can pool accounts. You can use debt without tax. You have asset protection. You can move assets between accounts. I didn't go into this, but if you want to do a Roth conversion, most of us just think in terms of cash going from one IRA to another. When you have a qualified retirement plan, you can Roth convert property. I've done it. For my clients before. So we actually move houses between accounts. They make Roth conversions with properties, not with cash. You have multiple funding options. The only drawback the only thing that the QRP doesn't give you, it's not a drawback, it's actually a tremendous benefit, is that you're not under IRS scrutiny. Self-directed IRAs, you can see there's only 2 yeses on this side of the column. So when you're thinking about this, you really need to be asking yourself, the choice is obvious, but the 2 words that really come to mind for me is why and what. What I mean by that is, why are you still using an outdated IRA strategy when you have another opportunity out there? Okay, if you keep, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I see that with IRA account holders. Yeah, some of them are being able to invest and they're not paying taxes on it because it's held inside their self-directed IRA. But you know what? Just a matter of time. Just a matter of time till the IRS is going to come knocking on your door and they're going to start pointing out everything you've done wrong inside of that self-directed IRA. And then you're going to pay tax. And it's not going to be what your current rate is. It's going to end up being double because you did it in a prohibited transaction, which is going to hit you with penalties and fees. So why are you still using it is one question. The next one is what? What are you going to do now to take advantage, to get started with that qualified retirement plan? Because that is where your investment money should be. That's where that control lies. That's where all the benefits lie. So if you want to take advantage of this, call us today at 800-706-4741. And if you mention offer QRP15, we're going to give you a very special discount for taking action to set up one of these plans and to put you in a position where you'll have true control over your funds without IRS scrutiny and put you on the path to a safe and secure retirement. My name is Clint Coons with Anderson Business Advisors, and I hope you learned some interesting facts today about the problems with self-directed IRAs and what you can do to take yourself out of the scrutiny of the Internal Revenue Service and potential creditors that are out there just waiting to take a piece of what you're earning. Thank you very much.